Today's talk is being sponsored by the FM Academy. This should be a familiar slide to most of you. This is the groups that are currently in the Academy. We are a group of FileMaker developers that cover the entire North American continent. After the talk, if you'd like more information about FileMaker, go to the nearest FileMaker Academy member based on your location and where they're located. You can find this on the FM Academy website also. The FM Academy website can be found at the address right there. You probably know where it is since you've all registered for the seminar. On to today's FileMaker seminar. It's all about snapshot links. This feature was introduced a couple of versions ago, and at first it didn't get a lot of traction, but I knew right away it was something that had a lot of really good potential. What is amazing about it is it can be used both at a really simple level without any programming, any FileMaker programming at all, just by the end user. In addition, there's a couple of tools that I'm going to go over today that really help you leverage your FileMaker database to give users in your system more visibility. Remember, a database is not just a collection of numbers. There's data entry. We spend a lot of time thinking about data entry, but there's also the analysis of the data, and reports have to come out, data in, data out. All of this information flow is important when designing a solution for an entire company or school or organization. When you're designing a FileMaker solution, the nice thing about snapshot links is it helps to improve the visibility of the database. It will allow you to share data with more users. And anytime you can improve the visibility of your solution, that's good for you professionally. Like Tim Neudecker likes to say, this gives you horizontal traction within the company. But it's not just about us. It's also about our clients. Anything that we can do that gives them more bang for their buck out of FileMaker will help them get the most out of their FileMaker investment. This is not a cheap product, so it's really good to make sure that we remind our clients that they're getting a lot of value for their investment in FileMaker. Using snapshot links, we can also reduce data duplication. I really hate the idea of data living in more than one place. You take data from FileMaker, export it to Excel, and now an unwitting user has data in two different places. And also, using this tool will increase our productivity using the database in a much more efficient manner. This is a nice way to think about it. FileMaker lets you interact with lots of different types of technologies. SQL databases, Oracle databases, OBDC, integrate with lots of different things using PHP, XML. You can even integrate with your local computer using a variety of plugins. Each one of these types of technologies doesn't necessarily have to be thought of as a technology. Each one really represents a person behind the technology. So taking your database and having it talk to Oracle is a way of letting a finance team into your database to exchange information. Integrating your database with an SQL backend might help people in the shop or in the warehouse or manufacturing facility see and trade data. PHP helps your clients or your customers see their data. It also helps you interact with your vendors. Taking your database, hooking it into PHP, and ultimately into something like Salesforce will help your sales team see the data. Each one of these technologies really represents a class of users, and it's all about keeping the users engaged in your database. So, what are the goals for today's talk? We're going to talk about snapshot links, basically how to use them, how you can take advantage of them. We're also going to talk about how you can use a snapshot link to to create and send dynamic reports to different users of your system, reports that are more sophisticated than just paper representations of old-fashioned paper reports. We're going to incorporate snapshot links into a simple workflow, and I'm also going to show you how we can use snapshot links to move groups of records, specifically moving them from the client to the server to take advantage of perform script on server to do any actions that you could really think of. Oh, this is my reminder that now we're going to switch over into demo time. And we're going to go over here. And can I maximize that? Oh, look at that. It did it by itself. Excellent. So for today's presentation, I'm going to start with one of the demo files. I like using the demo files that FileMaker supplies. In my mind, they spend a lot of effort making them look nice, so we might as well utilize some of that effort. Actually, I gave a FileMaker Academy webinar about this startup solutions a while ago. Yeah, you might want to go back into the archives and look at that. I'm going to log in to our event management database as the boss, because I am the boss. So in today's talk, I've created a fictitious company. It's an event management company. And their very simple database has a bunch of events. There's a wedding and some anniversaries and some other things like that. They also have a table of contacts. And they also have a table full of invoices. In this demo database, we don't have line items. I just created a couple thousand invoices and slapped in some numbers for values and things like that. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is how to send a group of records from one user to another user. So imagine I'm the boss and I'm looking at our contacts, and I want to find all the contacts that are in Pennsylvania, okay? So I'm just going to go find PA, and I find 300 records, and I'm just going to omit a random number of them. Why? Because they're just not relevant to what I'm really talking about. Maybe these are clients that haven't contacted us for a long time, and I want to take this group of records and send them to a user and say, hey, can you follow up with all of these clients and find out why they haven't spent money with us? So your first reaction might be, well, let's just take this group of records. We have 300 records right now, and save them as Excel. We could do that, but I think a more sophisticated way to do it would be to save them as a snapshot link. So what we're going to do is go up to the File menu, and there's under File, we have Save Records As, and there's Excel, PDF, and Snapshot Link. So we're going to save these records as a snapshot link, and it asks us where to save them and the name. So we're going to call it Pennsylvania Clients, No Calls. And you have an option actually even to create an email. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm just going to save it on my desktop. So imagine in our scenario, I'm the boss, right? And I've created this found set of records. I'm going to exit out. And here's my snapshot link right here on the desktop. It's very small. If you can read the tooltip here, it's only 2 kilobytes, which is really not a lot of not a lot of size. This is very easy to send to someone. So what I'm going to do in this this little play that we've put together, I'm going to send them to my user, and I'm going to tell them in the email, hey, can you call these people and follow up? So I'm going to open up this snapshot link, and since I wasn't in FileMaker, it's asking me to credential myself. I'm the user now. I'm not the boss anymore. That's important. So I'm logging in as the user, And what happens is it takes me to those same 200 and nearly 300 records. My cursor is actually even on exactly the same record that I was on before, and the records are sorted in the same way. So this is just how the boss left it for me. I'm going to sort these by contact name. So what's nice about this, as opposed to exporting a found set in Excel, is if I'm the office worker, which I now am, I can go to the first record, and I can call this person. I can leave a note right in the database. Called this person on Tuesday. And I'll leave my name here, user 1, there. And I could work through my groups of records, and I could complete my task. I'm going to exit out. And what's great about this is I've left my note right in the database. I don't have to go put it in an Excel document and then let the boss know. Because if I'm the boss, I can log in using my same snapshot link, completely different user, and since my regular office worker left their note right in the database, I can go to that first record and I can see the note that the user left in there. So that's the beauty of a database, and I want to encourage my clients to always use their database. So that's the basic use of a snapshot link. One person can save a group of records and easily and safely send them to another group, to another user. And whoever is opening those records, they're opening exactly those records. So that's the basic use of snapshot links. Let's talk about using snapshot links for basic reporting. Our company is growing a little bit, and other users in the office are seeing the value of the database, and everybody really wants to get a piece of it. Everybody wants to get reports out of the database. So our example is we're going to look at how many invoices created last month. And you might want that sorted by salesman, by location. Here, let's go to invoices. Because each invoice has a bunch of different things. We've got the salesperson, we've got the value of the invoice, the date of the invoice, and the location of the event. Paper reports are a real mainstay. Almost every database I've ever worked with has a paper report, but they're very one-dimensional. They don't change. If you want a report first put together, sorted by salesman, if someone wants it later reported but sorted by another way and grouped in another way, that's a whole nother report with a whole nother virtual piece of paper. Typically what will happen is you'll end up with a reports menu, and they'll be peppered with lots of different buttons for different types of reports and things like that. Often you'll have that walk through a wizard. Like, do I want this month's report? Here, let me cancel. I have a little wizard here on this paper old-fashioned report. Click on here. Do I want to see this current month or last month's? I just want to see my current month's invoices. Do I want them sorted in one particular way or another? I can sort it by state, and they sort, and I'm presented with essentially a piece of paper that I can't modify and change. So here are my invoices by state, and I can see how many invoices or the value, how many things were ordered in Alaska, and how many things were ordered in California by month. And then this would be sent off as a PDF to the end user. Problem is, there's a couple of problems. It's hard to change the view on the fly. It's also hard to automate generations of PDFs. You can do workarounds like creating the body of the email to have the report, a simple report, or to send someone a report using Excel. That might be the evolution of a report to send an end user an Excel report. And that way, they can manipulate the data by themselves. So let's go back to our invoice list, invoices, and let's find all of our invoices for, let's see, date, February. Whoops. Find. Well, that's no good. How did I do that before? Okay, hold on, everybody. This is what happens sometimes. Yeah. Date. Perform find. There we go. Nobody saw that. So here we have our invoices for the month of February. You might want to have a button to create a found set. Here's our monthly report. Oh, that's right. I did it in the script. So I want to create a report for this month, the current month. It's going to export my data. And it's going to save my Excel spreadsheet on the desktop. Here's the January report. Now, going with the idea that most of your users are very comfortable with Excel and they know how to sort and do whatever they want, you leave them on their own devices. Just export the data and tell them to do everything manually. In addition, this is very easy to set this up as a recurring script on the server, maybe the first of every month or the last Friday of every month. You can create, you can have a script fire off that would send an Excel attachment to the end users. Another way to do it would be the third evolution, which is what I call using the FileMaker interface to do your reporting for you. And I sort of already tipped my hand on that. What I'm going to do is go to invoices. Just this is an invoice layout again, but it's just my style, the way I like to do it. So we have headers on each thing right here, and oops. And you can click on the headers, and whatever sort that you want at the time, you can sort and group your data. One little trick that I've started using in FileMaker 14 is when you sort your data using just simple buttons up here for sorting, you can use a button bar to sort and unsort your records. So right now, I have these sorted by invoice number. I can unsort them, and now they're just in raw the native order. Let's order by state, or I can also sort them by salesperson, and I see my summaries. We get very nice, ribbon summaries along here. But let's say I'm not interested in all the detail here. Remember, we're always thinking about the end user, and someone that's doing this is more of a high-level person. He's only interested in how much each salesman is doing, not necessarily the numbers. So there's a button right here called Summary, and what this does, it takes me to another layout, which is just the summary parts, not the details. So here I can see each salesperson and the summary, their count of line items, and the total amount of all their invoices. I can still sort this on this layout too. So here, I've sorted by state, so I can see how many sales in each state, or salesperson. And all I'm doing is I've navigated to another layout that doesn't have a body part. I can go back to my detail view by clicking this button right here. And now I'm still sorted by salesperson, but now I get the detail, the ribbon summaries. I can unsort, and then they all go away. And notice the button goes away here because my sort state is now 0. So wouldn't this be a much better report to send to an end user? So this way you can sort however you want at the time when you're looking at the report. You can see the details. You can see the overview, the 1,500-foot summary, as it were. In addition, it lets you drill into each invoice and see more information about an invoice. This is a much more powerful report than a representation of a piece of paper. So how could we send this to our supervisor? Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it by salesperson and just show the summary. How can we send this to our supervisor? Guess what? Same way. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to save records as a snapshot link. And this is going to be the Feb report summary. And I'm going to save it on my desktop. And we're going to exit out. So we're not in FileMaker. We're not in the database anymore. And we don't need that report. And here's our snapshot link. Let's open up that. And of course, I have to credential myself. I'll be the user this time. Open it up. And what happens is it takes me to the same layout, the same summary. I can see my summary right here. And if I'm really interested in how many invoices Archie has done in February, I can hit detail. Boom, there I have it. So I'm just sending a snapshot link of a layout. And this can easily be created on the server and done on a schedule. So let's go back to our reports layout. And we have another button here, monthly invoice FileMaker report, and this is run on server. So I click this button, and it's going to go and perform a script on the server that's going to create my snapshot link and email it. Right now I have it hard-coded, emailed to myself, but you could email it to a bunch of different people. Whenever I do a script that's performed on server, like a report this way, I always like to keep a button on the actual user interface in case they need to rerun that report, and for whatever reason, maybe the boss accidentally deleted it, or maybe you want to send that report to someone else. Let's take a quick detour. I'm going to go over to my Gmail. And look, I got my January report. Here it is. Go into my Gmail. There's my report FileMaker snapshot link. We're going to download it, and we're going to open it. This works any platform and also any, here we go, any version of FileMaker. So here we go. It took me to the same group of invoices. These happen to not be sorted, but this is a much better way to get my report that I could see. I could always put options on this layout. If you really want to export it into Excel or print it, go wild. But this is a good start how to get there. Let's get dirty a little bit, and we're going to look at the script that actually creates this report. Okay, we go here, and here's the button to create our snapshot link on the server. We're going to go into layout mode. And since this is run on the server, it's going to be a very boring script. Send this month's report from server. And it has basically one line, perform this script on server, and at the end, it just lets the user know that something happened. This way they don't go clicking it a dozen times. So really we want to look at monthly invoice found set. Monthly invoice found set. Here it is. And let's walk through it. So first thing I do is I'm checking to see whether or not I'm running this script on the server or if I'm running it locally. So to do that, you use get application version, and if it's being run on the server as a perform script on server, it will have the word server in there. So if the word server is not there, I'm running locally, and there I end up asking the user, do you want this month or last month? And then if they want it sorted. So I could walk them through that same little mini wizard that we did. But in this case, we're running it on the server. So we're going to go from here. That's not true. We go down to here. So I'm running on the server, and the first thing that happens is I have to choose a layout. So we're going to our developer blank invoices layout, and I'm going to find all the invoices that are in the current month. When it's run on the server, by definition, it's just the current month. That's just the way I had this set up. But you can do it any way you want. Perform, find, and I didn't bother error trapping it. But at this point, you would want to make sure that there are invoices. Maybe you called this via a button on the first day of the month, and there are no invoices. So you find the invoices, and the way that looks is you just find records where the invoice date is the same as our date variable, which is just the month number. Then I go to the invoices my style layout, which is the one that I happen to like. I go to that layout. I'm setting a variable. So this variable is the name of the file. This is pretty important. And it's get temporary path plus a name for the report. We'll get a little bit more sophisticated with this in a minute, but this is just a good start. And you have to put it someplace, so get temporary path. And this is perfectly cross-platform. This will work on a Mac and a PC server. So I tell the server where I'm going to save the file, and here's the business. Save records as Snapshot link. This is the same thing. This is functionally the same thing as just selecting file, save as. So you tell it to, the output is going to go into file, which is the variable we just created. And you can specify records being browsed or current records. The same way a print command would ask you, do you want to print your found set or just a single record? So I'm going to save as a snapshot link, and then I'm just going to create an email. And the email is sent via SMTP, and we have a nice subject, which tells the user what they're getting. So the February, the March report. A little boilerplate saying this was created from the server. You might want to put some more information in there, like there were 27 invoices this month, or something useful. And then you want to attach the file. And the file is yet another reference to that same variable, file. So we use that in 3 places. We define the file, we define the variable, we use it to save the snapshot link to our temp directory, and then we use that same variable to specify what our snapshot link is. So you put those all together, and when you do that, you get, don't save. You end up with an email saying monthly report generated by FileMaker server, and there is my snapshot link right there, ready to use. And these are very small. They don't take up any room, so you're not going to bump up against any limits in terms of size. Like in the other scenario where you're sending an Excel file, those Excel files can get pretty large, and you might bump up against some kind of server limits, which we'll get to in just a minute. So this is using snapshot links for reporting. You can also use these guys in just a regular workflow. I'll give you an example of how to do that. Let's go back into browse mode. There we go. And we're going to go to our events. So in our events company, each event has a number of things that have to get filled out. There's the name of the event, and then there's the phone number to contact the person, an email, and there's also the salesperson. Now, if we get to the Smith christening, we can see that there's no phone and there's no email. So what I've done is I've put a button up here that appears when when certain criteria are met. And in this case, it's a missing phone number and a missing email. Let's go back one to the gold wedding. That button doesn't show up because we have an email and we have a phone number. So here, this button showed up, so I might want to notify the salesperson that we have some missing data. So I'm going to assign Frank to this event, and now I'm going to click this button saying notify the salesperson that there's missing data. So maybe I'm just looking at this. I'm involved some other way in the process here, and it's not my job to go chase down Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Okay, so there, the email is sent. Again, I like to let the user know something happened. So let's go check my email. Oh, look, event notification. And I'll look at this. Frank, Smith christening is missing information. Please fill in the following information. And I list what's missing: phone number, email, event. Use the attached link to get to the event. So here I am, I'm Frank, and I get this email. I don't have to go searching, what was the event number? What was it they were talking about? It's right here. I've solved the problem where the problem happens. So I just download my snapshot link. This works a little bit differently in different platforms. If you're using a real Outlook client, you can just double-click it and it opens. I'm using a web client. You can see it works perfectly well in a web client. I'm going to open this, and it's going to take me exactly to that record when it decides to. There we go. It took me to this record, and now I can put in a phone number, and I can give them an email too. There we go. And those are the two criteria, even though in the email there were some more things. But now my button is gone. You could have actually a button bar, and you could present different buttons like, oh, this is, and make different decisions. Like maybe someone else would want to contact this person because now there's a phone number. I can contact them using regular methods, whereas before there was no way to get in touch with that person. So let's look at how this was put together. Scripting workspace, and this one was send event to salesperson. Well, the first thing I do is I make sure that there's a salesperson assigned to this record, because if there's no salesperson, I can't send it anywhere. You might want to error trap that in a different way. Maybe send it to a supervisor or the head salesperson saying, hey, not only is this missing information, but it's also missing a salesperson. But in this example, I'm just exiting out. We're done error trapping. the next thing we're doing is we're performing script on server, and the script is send event to salesperson, PSOS, perform script on server, and I'm passing it a parameter, and the parameter is the primary key of the event that we're doing. You might ask, why am I doing this as a perform script on server? And in this case, it doesn't really matter, but I like doing things that interact with other people using perform script on server for a number of reasons. It's typically faster, and especially something like this, you don't have to worry about losing a connection. So maybe someone's using their database on their phone or their tablet. And in addition, some clients that we work with at IT Solutions don't allow you to send emails using SMTP just from anywhere. So this way, everything comes from one place. So let's go look at this perform script on server. And this one's, let's see, what do we do? First thing we do when we fire this script is we have to grab that script parameter. So that's number 1. I'm grabbing the ID, and I put it in a variable called ID. Then we go to the layout, which is the event detail, which is the one we're looking at, and I find that record. Now this is going to look sort of similar. We set the name of the file. I always like to use the same things. That way, whatever kind of script I'm looking at, I pretty much know what's going to happen. Get temporary path, and here I'm a little bit smarter. I'm saying event, and I'm putting in the event ID, saving it with a file type of snapshot link. I create a variable that's basically just a list of my missing fields. So I'm using the list function, and if the phone field is empty, I can use actual text phone number. I like to use real English as opposed to field names. So for instance, address. If the address field is missing, I tell the end user the event location is missing. So we do that. I have to figure out who the salesperson is. So and for that, I'm just using a little bit of SQL. Select name from the salesperson table, where my primary key is equal to question mark, and my question mark is the salesperson of this event. And then I use the same thing to get the salesperson's email address. So I select the email from the salesperson table. This is all getting ready, putting all my pieces together. So now I'm going to save the record as a snapshot link. So the difference here, as opposed to the last example, is I'm saving just the current record. My end user might be on 1 million records. I'm just sending the one. And then same thing, I'm going to send an email, and the email has some boilerplate. It has the variable that we figured out saying the missing information, and it has the attachment file. There we go. So that's how you can incorporate the snapshot link into an actual workflow. I find my end users think these are just the bee's knees. They're very convenient ways to navigate to a record very quickly without having to traipse all over your database and find things. Takes you right there. So far, we've talked about finding, sending snapshot links for a single record, like this example, or a calculated group of records, like doing a find for a month or a year or a salesperson, something like that. The next thing I'd like to talk about is a group of records that's more indeterminate. That is, it's created on the fly by the user. This is a real situation that I encountered recently. I have a client with a very large database, and it keeps track of stuff like gear. And the users need to find large, arbitrary sets of gear or of things. Well, they're not really arbitrary, but to me as the developer, it's an arbitrary group of records. And so they find these large group of records, and then they like to export them to Excel. And to make matters worse, the fields they need to export are usually a lot of calculations, and they're also related data along with the local data. And just to make this problem a little worse, they have a lot of users using the wide area network. So when they want to export their data, it can often take hours, literally hours, before I showed up to export their data. And during the time they're exporting their data, they obviously can't use their database, use a FileMaker. So what I'd like to do is show you how I solved that problem. Basically, we solved it using a technique that was developed by the guys over at Skeleton Key, and I'll give you a link to the tools that they used in a minute. The way that we're going to solve this problem is, let's say I want to export, in this case I have 5,000 contacts. I'm going to omit just a couple, just for fun. 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, so I have 5,005 contacts. And what's going to happen is I'm going to go here and I'm going to export these contacts. I'm going to first show you the user experience, and then we'll talk about how we put this whole thing together. So let's say I want to export these 5,000 records. First thing it's doing is asking me, am I sure I want to do it? I always give a user an out when they start, and I also ask the user what they want to call their exported file. So I'm going to say large group of clients. I'm going to do that, and there I've exported my records, and in a couple of minutes I'm going to get a notification in my inbox. Actually, I just remembered in production when we do this, it reminds them you'll get an email shortly. So here's my email. I just got my email of my 5,000 records. Now remember, in production system, this could take half an hour, 2 hours. It could take a really long time. And in general, this takes maybe 3 or 5 minutes on a very large solution. So significant savings of time. I'm going to download, and I'm going to open. And what it takes me to is a dialog box. And this is my data. This is my Excel spreadsheet. And there's a button right here to download. And this all depends on the sophistication of your users. If they need a big download button, they could also just take and export your field contents. So I hit download. I'm going to take it and drop this guy on my desktop. Zippity-doo-dah. Close that. And this is my Excel document. I could put the fields in any order I want, and I've got everything exported. And they can take this, send this to their other system, or whatever they do with it. So this is a really great delivery system that uses a snapshot link to take you to a downloadable file. And you can use this in a variety of ways. Maybe you have a database that stores large videos, and you can download your videos this way. So let's talk about how this is put together. You know what? Before we do this, I have to show you inside a snapshot link, just to show you how what is a snapshot link. Can I do this on the PC side? I'm not sure. Open with. Yeah. Other programs. We might have to go back to the Mac side. Notepad. Okay. Okay. Oh, well, that's readable. So, so let's talk about what a snapshot link is. It's really just an XML file. And let's put in a couple of carriage returns. I'm not sure which one this is, but let's just read it together. So XML, blah, 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 and it tells me what the file is that I'm connecting to. There's my IP address and the name of the database. And then there's rows, native list. There's 163 rows. It tells me what table ID I'm coming from. This line here, this is the business line. See data, and let's separate this one out a little bit. because everything else I'm actually going to basically ignore. What this is a list of record IDs of all the records in your found set. So, and I think there should have been a carriage return there that Windows decided I didn't need to see. But it looks like this. So my found set is records 536 to 613, and then followed by records 615 to 699. And the rest of this stuff is just saying whether or not you see the toolbar, what layout you're on, yada, yada, yada. But this is the real business. This is what is inside a snapshot link. It doesn't actually send any information. It just sends record IDs, which is something that's in the background under the hood that FileMaker uses. So that's why they're so small. Now, this technique that the guys over at Skeleton Key came up with, I didn't invent it. This is really brilliant. Let's walk through our workflow. So when I click the button, first thing it does is I show a dialog box and I get a name for the email, because I want the user to know what to look for, or a way to describe what it is they're exporting. And the next thing I'm doing is I'm sending the email title up to the server because, well, at the time this was the only way I could really think to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm setting a temporary field on the user table. So for the user table, there's just a temporary field, so I can take that name and send it up there. It was just easier to do it this way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm performing this script called save found set. And let's go to this guy, which is right here. And what it's doing is, remember, the context is I'm sitting on a found set of records. So it sets a variable, what's my layout, and what record ID am I sitting on. And what it does is it creates file. Remember, this is file, temporary path, and it defines the my snapshot link, and it saves my snapshot link. And what it does is then takes that snapshot link and does an insert from URL. When you do that, it's not going into a container field, it's going into a text field. So then this script can actually parse through the text that we were just looking at of the snapshot link. So this is how this is the secret sauce of getting the text of the snapshot link. And then what it does is, if your found set is nothing, it gives you an error. Otherwise, what this does is basically strips out that part that I told you about that just gets the record IDs. So, and that's what result. And so what it does is it exits, and when it exits that script, it has the list of IDs on, it basically grabbed the list of IDs that we're going to send up to the server. So let's get back to send me these records. So it saves my found set, and there's some error trapping, and it grabs that script parameter, get script result, and I'm going to do a script up on the server now, which is email this found set, perform script on server. And script result, and I'm sending it the list of IDs that I'm going to send. So this script basically strips out the IDs that we're going to send from the snapshot link, and then I'm using that as a parameter to send up to the server. So email this found set. This one's a little long, but don't get intimidated. When you download the sample file, it's pretty much marked what you need to do. Plus, I've added some stuff down here to take into account different contexts. But we're going to ignore that for this. So the first thing, we're going to perform this script on server. The first thing we're going to do is call another script, which is restore found set. And what this does is it uses that list of script IDs, pardon me, of record IDs, and it reconstructs your found set on the server. So restore found set, what it does is goes to the particular layout, and then it does a loop, see, enter find mode, loop, and it does a succession of finds for each one of those lines of record IDs. And then when we're all done this thing, it performs find, and that refines those records based off of their record ID. Email this found set. So that's this first step. So this first step recreates our found set up on the server. After that, we have to set a bunch of variables like who we're going to send it to, the name of the email, and what our context is. So our context is contacts for this. So I'm sitting on the right context. I'm going to export my records. So this export step is pretty important. You define what fields that you want to export and what the order is. After you export them, what I do is, if it's particularly small, I don't bother sending the snapshot link. I just send the Excel file. But if it's larger in production, if they're exporting more than 20,000 records, that's like a 2 megabyte attachment. So I typically like to do that using my snapshot link method. So what we're doing is we're creating a file URL. I'm defining what I'm going to call the snapshot link. And when I do this, I use a little bit different. I put in the date and the timestamp so they can distinguish between one thing and another. But I'm ultimately saving it in the temporary path, just as before. And then I go to my messaging detail layout, and I create my new record, and I insert into there the URL of my Excel file, and then I create my snapshot link, save records as snapshot link, and this is just saving that holder record from a utility table that I have someplace. And then I'm sending that to my user. So the size of the container field in FileMaker is, of course, something like 4 gigabytes. So you could put a movie in there. And then this email is just a snapshot link to a single record, which is typically 815K, something like that. So this is a really nice way of moving files around from one user to another. Don't save this, revert. So in this case, it was a little simplified because 5,000 records doesn't really hit into slow territory in FileMaker. But if you add 1 or 2 zeros on your records, on your found count, and then add a couple of calculated fields that you can't get away from and related data, it really adds up. This is a very nice way of moving data around. And it uses email and a snapshot link, which is 1 KB, which is nothing. Okay. Guess what? That's the end of demo time. Yeah. So let's review what we can do with snapshot links. Oh, these are all cameras that I've had, by the way. We started off, you probably didn't see the camera very early. It was an old Brownie camera, which was my mom's that I had. That was hers in, like, I don't know, the 1940s. That's another story. We'll talk about. Corner me about that camera sometime. Anyway, snapshot links are really easy. You can use them right from the file menu, and your end users can use them with absolutely no scripting or anything like that. And they're very powerful. I would encourage your users to, I would encourage you to educate your end users. And they're also very secure. There's no protected health data. There's no financial data. There's no names, dates, serial numbers. It's just record IDs. Very, very nice, easy, secure way to send groups of data over the internet. Okay, we're moving up in the world. They are also multi-purpose. You can use them for navigating purposes and for lots of different things, and for reporting. You can also use them for opener files, which I forgot to, which we didn't have time to really go over today. But if you create a snapshot link and that takes you to and if you do it from your opening layout, that's a nice way to make an opener file as opposed to a URL opener file, only because it's a little bit obfuscated. Everybody knows how to open a URL file just by clicking on it or right-clicking on it and say, give me information. Snapshot links, you have to open in another application to actually read what's inside. So arguably slightly safer. And you can use them for notifications like, hey, bub, you have to update this client's record or this event record. And of course, we talked about it for exporting large amounts of data and moving large sets of data in and around. You could also use this if you have a large set of data that you want to walk through and maybe set fields. You can do this on the server by taking a large found set, send the snapshot link up to the server, and let all your work happen on the server, which will be faster than letting your clients do it anyway. I will post the found set trick up on the FileMaker Academy website shortly after this, and there'll also be a summary of this whole thing on the Philly FileMaker Users Group blog. So make sure you keep one eyeball on each one of those things in the future, and you'll learn more. I'll also have how to create an opener file using a snapshot link. Don't forget, that's how to get in contact with us. That's a bunch of us with our FileMaker 14 certification certificate. Is that right? I don't know. No? Okay.
All right.
Anyway, that's it for me.
All right, I've got it on speaker so I can read some of these questions. Since we have like a minute, I don't think we're going to get through all of them, but here we go. How does the snapshot link work if you have login scripts configured which also handle security?
They do that first.
Okay,
so the opening script will fire, and you still have to do security. I think that person's talking about roll your own security, which I've used snapshot links, and basically you have to walk through and credential yourself using the roll your own. Once all that stuff is done, it takes you to the layout and the found set.
Okay, cool. Then there were a couple people who asked about using snapshot links in a browser. So a snapshot link, I guess, to open something in WebDirect. And I guess that probably not, but is the URL syntax supported for WebDirect? Can you tell WebDirect to go do something? That would be an alternative, I guess, to snapshot links. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Speaking off the cuff about that, but if you could pass parameters to WebDirect, then you could potentially, in
a total WebDirect solution, I don't know. I'll have to play with that. That's very
But
clever.
I imagine snapshot links would not.
No, I would actually, I would go more towards the URL scheme.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple questions on that. Somebody asked if they can have copies of these files. We're actually going to post the sample file to the FM Academy website along with the recording of the webinar. That'll probably be later this week or potentially early next week. We understand that for those folks who didn't get to see this session, they're not hearing this announcement, so so they'll just email us and complain. Can we please have our recording of the webinar? Let me see if I can get to something. And by the way, we will venture to answer all these questions online with a Q&A on the blog post, the post-webinar blog post itself. So if we didn't get to a question, we will definitely attempt to answer all of them. Okay. Nothing quickly that we could answer. We're already over time. Sorry.
We'll write these up as a blog post.
We will absolutely write all of these up and respond to them all with a post-webinar blog post. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And there is a